Today, Year 3, you're going to find out what Harmony actually wishes for in the book itself. So sit back and listen, because you need to listen to this for our English lessons this week. So carrying on from where the last video where I read, or Mrs. Edwards read, continues, okay? Carefully, Harmony laid Rexworth Monty down on the grass and put the piece of paper in her pocket. She held the coin in her left hand with the Queen's head facing downward and put the tip of her right forefinger on the feminine-looking hand. She closed her eyes tight. She thought of a whole host of possible wishes and decided to start with something simple. At that moment she heard the car coming up the drive as the shoppers returned, and that made her think it would soon be lunchtime. She would have her favourite lunch. "I wish," said Harmony, "for fish fingers and baked beans and chips and tomato sauce," and she rubbed hard. For 20 minutes she lay in the orchard grass and waited, her mind in a whirl of excitement, the 50-pence piece seeming almost to burn her hand with its magic powers. Then she heard the pouter pigeons call, "Harmony, lunch is ready." Slowly Harmony walked up the orchard, in through the French windows, across the sitting room, and paused outside the dining room door, the coin clenched in her hand. She turned the handle and walked in. It was cold meat and salad. "Why aren't we having fish fingers?" she said. "Harmony, what are you talking about?" "You're disgusting, Harm. I suppose you expected baked beans and chips and tomato sauce too on a boiling hot day like this." "Yes." "Don't be silly, Harmony darling, and go and wash. Your hands are dirty." "She's got something in one of her grubby paws, Mummy." "What is it, Harm?" "Mind your own stinking—" "Harmony, you are not to speak to your sister like that. What have you got there?" Harmony opened her hand. "Little liar," said Melody. "You said you hadn't got any money. You said there wasn't any in the envelope. Fancy Uncle Ginger only giving her 50-pence, Mummy! My frock must have cost the earth." She unsheathed her claws for a final scratch. "Still, I suppose 50-pence is a lot for a kid like you." Automatically, as she washed her hands, Harmony made the two appropriate faces. "My mother drives me mad, and I hate my sister," but she wasn't really thinking about either of them. She ate her lunch at top speed and without tasting it, her thoughts concentrated on the riddle. All right, she hadn't found the answer, but not for a moment did she doubt the power of the coin. She slipped one hand into her pocket and fingered its straight edges. How many sides did a 50-pence piece have? Oh, was the answer something to do with that? "Your day for washing up, Harm," said the Siamese, dabbing her lips in a maddeningly delicate way. Harmony wiped the back of her hand over her mouth and put on her pleading face, eyes very wide, head tipped a little to one side, eyebrows raised in a pathetic fraction. "Oh, Melody, you wouldn't like to swap, would you? Please, I've got something frightfully important to do." "Important? You?" "Yes, I'll swap." "You will? At a price." "How much?" 50-pence. "Smelly flea-bitten cat! Harmony, you are not to speak to your sister like that, and please don't bang those plates about. You'll break something." The washing up finished and her bedroom door locked, Harmony counted the sides on the coin. 7. She studied the paper. 6 times more when once you've started. 1 plus 6 equals 7. And the 9 line, 9 minus 2 equals 7. So it's to do with the sides, not the hands. But 6 sides won't grant me any wishes. Only 1 will. That's the point. That's the point. It says so in the last line. So it all depends on royal, not Roman, straight, not snub. Well, royal's easy enough. It's got something to do with the Queen's head. And straight, well, the coin's got straight sides, I suppose. I can't see where Roman comes in. Now, I know what a snub is. It's when someone tries to make you feel small or stupid, like simple Sissy's always doing to me. But I can't see the point of it here. Perhaps it's got something to do with D, G, Reg, F, D, round the side of the coin. If only I knew what that meant. I suppose you don't by any chance know RRM? Rexworth Monty's single eye seemed expressionless, but it appeared to tell Harmony something. "Of course," she said. "You're right as usual. All I've got to do is rub each side in turn and wish, and if the wish comes true, I've got the right one. But somehow that seemed to be almost like cheating and not the right way to solve the riddle. With the patient's stubbornness, her family called it, that was part of her nature, Harmony decided to wait till her father came home. She would pick his brains. After all, she thought he's the only one with any brains to pick. Mr. Parker usually arrived back from the city around 6 o'clock. Harmony had never really known what he did for a living. Because of her picture of him, she imagined him balancing a big coloured rubber ball on the end of his nose, or playing the national anthem on a row of squeaky horns and then clapping his flippers together and barking. Sometimes the picture was so vivid that she was quite surprised to see he had 2 legs. As usual, the sea lion dropped into his special armchair, while the pouter pigeon fluttered off to bring him his special drink, and the Siamese cat purred and rubbed herself against his shiny black suit. Harmony did not normally take part in this welcoming ceremony, so he was a little surprised to find her standing beside him wearing a somewhat strange look. This was in fact her seeker-after-knowledge face, earnest, serious, attentive, respectful. "Harmony," grunted Sea Lion, "what is the matter? You do not look your usual self." "What's D.G. Reg. F.D.?" said Harmony. "What on earth are you talking about? On a 50p piece? Have you got a 50p piece?" Understanding dawned in the sea lion's rather prominent eyes. He felt in his pocket and produced the first coin that came to hand, a 2p piece as it happened. "My dear Harmony," he said, "I'm surprised you haven't noticed that those letters appear on every coin of the realm. They stand for Dei Gratia Regina Fide Defensa." "What's that mean?" "It means, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith." "What language is that?" Mr. Parker sighed. "Latin, Harmony, Latin, the language of the ancient Roman." Royal, not Roman, thought Harmony. Straight, not snub. "If you snub someone," she said, "it means you make them feel silly, doesn't it?" The sea lion looked suspicious. He had his flipper pulled before now. "My dear Harmony, I was not snubbing you, merely trying to blow away a little of the mists of ignorance through which you peer at the world." "No, I meant, does snub mean anything else?" "Of course, it means turned up, of a nose, the opposite to a Roman nose." A great sunburst of light shone through the mist of ignorance. With the discretion, coldness, her family called it, that was the part of her nature. Harmony gave no outward sign of the excitement bubbling up inside her. "Thanks," she said. "Crossword puzzle or something, was it?" asked Mr. Parker, shaking out his evening paper. "Sort of," she said, and to her father's great surprise she kissed him on the top of his bald head. Safely in her room, wearing the ridiculously happy face, she read the riddle once again. At last it was all clear. This particular 1973 50p piece would give her in all, and the second couplet, 7 wishes. She must never part with it. As she had guessed, the fourth couplet told that only one of its 7 sides was the magic one, and the last 2 lines told her which one. Royal, not Roman, straight, not snub. That was the Queen's nose. The side at which the Queen's nose pointed, that was the magic side. This time Harmony did not shut her eyes. She held the coin with the Queen's head upwards and began to rub the magic side backwards and forwards from the I to the T of Elizabeth and back again, slowly at first, and then faster and faster until the metal edge began to feel warm beneath her finger. "I wish," said Harmony, "for an animal of my very own." Downstairs, the front doorbell rang. Chapter 4. What will you wish today? Harmony and Melody arrived at the door together. Outside stood a figure which they saw in 2 different ways. Melody saw the local traffic warden, a small man with a stringy neck, a wide unsmiling mouth, and glassy unblinking eyes. He wore his dark uniform and cap with a yellow stripe. Harmony saw a great crested newt. There was no doubt, however, as to what he was carrying. It was a middle-sized white rabbit with black spots. "Better put it back in its hutch before it gets run over," said the newt severely. "It doesn't belong here," said Melody. At that moment Mr. Parker came to the door. "My car parked wrongly?" he asked. "You're a bad Parker," thought Harmony, and she made her private joke face. Shoulders hunched, neck shortened, ears waggling. The newt shot her a cold, amphibious glance. "No, nothing like that, sir," he said. "I was just going off duty when I saw this rabbit out in the road, and then all of a sudden it came straight in through your front gate and up the path to the door, just as though someone had called it. So I thought—" "Very kind of you," barked the sea lion, "but it doesn't belong to us." Quickly Harmony put on her pleading face, and the newt saw his chance. "Perhaps one of your little girls would like to look after it." The Siamese cat stalked off at being called a little girl, and Harmony turned the pleading face full on her father. "Just for the night," she said, "just till the real owner comes along." You cannot refuse, she thought. You cannot resist the power of the Queen's nose. The sea lion looked at her. He passed a flipper over the top of his shiny pate. Perhaps the memory of that rare and unexpected kiss that it had received may have influenced him, but he heard himself saying, "Well, just for the night, but I'm not having the smelly thing in the house. Do you understand?" And he bumped himself back to his drink and his paper. His smooth, empty face of expression, the newt handed over his burden and slid away down the street, pale eyes flickering from side to side at the lines of silent motor cars. Harmony stood watching him for a moment, the rabbit cradled in her arms. She wore her ridiculously happy face. She kept it on as she walked round through the front garden, into the orchard, and down to her den, until the effort of maintaining the grin made her cheeks ache. Inside the chicken house, she sat on the tea chest and watched as the rabbit hopped about the floor, puckering up its nose at the strange smells. She fetched some dandelions, and it began to eat. Sitting at her feet, it seemed completely at home. "An animal of my very own," said Harmony aloud. "I just wished it, and it happened." She took the 50-pence piece, out of her pocket and absent-mindedly rubbed the magic edge. "I wish Uncle Ginger knew that I'd solved the riddle," she said without thinking, and almost before she had time to realise what she'd done, she heard her name called. "Harmony, where are you? It's Uncle Ginger on the phone. He wants to speak to you." "What did you want?" said the Silvertip Grizzly's deep voice as soon as she picked the instrument up. Harmony glanced hastily around the room. The Siamese ears were pricked. She could see that straight away. She could not see the sea lion's small ones, for as he was wallowing behind his newspaper, and the pouters were hidden beneath the neat feathering of her hair. But it was obvious that they were listening. "Thank you very much for the money," she said. "I hope it will come in useful?" "Oh, it has." "So I gathered. I got the message pretty clear just a few minutes ago." "Oh, I think you've wasted a wish, haven't you?" No. It's lovely to hear from you." "Was that the first wish you'd made just now?" "No. You sound as though the rest of the family were all listening like mad." "Yes." "You know how many you've got, don't you? Wishes, I mean." "Yes." "Well, don't waste any more, will you?" "No. When you've finished your absolutely riveting conversation, composed entirely as it is, of yes and no," said Mr. Parker, "perhaps I could have a word." "I'll have to go now, Uncle Ginger," said Harmony. "I think Daddy wants to talk to you. By the way, I've got a rabbit." As she went out through the French windows, she heard sea lions bark. "Hello, Ginger? Good trip? What? No, of course she hasn't been given one. Somebody brought the mangy thing to the door. Put it somewhere overnight. Have to go to the pet shop if no one claims it." "But no one will claim you," said Harmony, back on the tea chest, "and you will not go to the pet shop. You'll see. Now we must find you a name. You look to be female somehow. Of course, you're Anita." Though they were unaware of it all the children in Harmony's class at school were animals of one kind or another. A lamb might sit at the same table with a lion, sharing it perhaps with a porcupine or a parrot, or even, for Harmony's knowledge of natural history was wide, the Leadbetter's possum or a Columbian duracoly. And as soon as she had set eyes on this rather fat little girl with sticking out teeth and hair worn in two high bunches like ears, Harmony had imagined her nibbling at a lettuce held in her paws. So if Anita was a rabbit, the rabbit should be Anita. By bedtime, Anita looked very comfortable. Harmony had cut off a sheaf of a long dry grass to make a bed. She had filled a bowl with water, and she had put out a kind of cafetiere in a nest of boxes. A crust snitched from a bread bin, some carrots pinched from the vegetable patch, a fallen apple, and more dandelions. She told Rex Rough Monty about it in great detail as they lay in bed and watched the moon coming up through the trees. He did not comment, but she was sure he was happy for her, and there were still 5 wishes to go. She fell asleep in the blink of a rabbit's eye.